an 18-year-old guy, a student living apart from my parents. I want to tell you a story that happened to me this summer. Remembering it, I can feel a chill creeping up my spine. It was summer, in the middle of hot July. It was already cool outside, in contrast to the daytime of the evening, and I was chatting with my friend in a social network, at the same time reviewing different videos on YouTube. At hand were a few freshly prepared sandwiches. My personal account was bursting with messages from my friend, and on the screen was open video of my favorite blogger, the only thing that was missing to create the perfect atmosphere of warm tea. However, to prepare it was not a problem. So, having told my friends that I will leave for a few minutes, I went to the kitchen. Putting the kettle on to boil, I stared out the window. It was already dark and cool outside, and there was no one around. After a few minutes, the kettle notified me that the water was boiling. After making tea and throwing a few lumps of sugar in it, I set it on the windowsill to cool down. I didn't feel like going into a stuffy room, so I decided to wait for the drink to cool down and enjoy the view of the deserted city streets in the meantime. 2 minutes passed, and a strange-looking tall man appeared downstairs. About 2 meters, maybe. He was tall, shaved bald, wearing a white shirt with red paint on the collar, a huge, apparently old belt, and wide pants. He walked slowly, whistling some strange song, then stopped and stared out the first-floor window. By the way, I live on the second floor, and I confess I was a little creeped out because he was too strange. And why would a normal person in the middle of the night look in other people's windows? I didn't want to look at it for a long time, so I took my tea. I hurried back to my room. There were already more than 20 messages in my private message box, and I quickly told my buddy about the strange guy. He didn't believe it, of course, although he did ask me to take a picture of him. I, of course, refused, reasoning that he had already left. In fact, I just didn't want to see him again. The topic quickly died down under the vault of the news we were hotly discussing. It had long since gotten dark outside. The clock showed 42 minutes past 1, but I didn't think about leaving the confines of the internet, and neither did my friend, who had just told me that he was going to shower and then go to bed because he had to get up early tomorrow and go find out about his job. Of course, sitting alone was much more boring, but since I didn't want to sleep at all, I decided to watch some YouTube videos again, and then maybe sleep would come. No sooner had I finished watching one blogger's 15-minute video than I got a message from a friend. Dude, I just saw something like this. You won't believe it anyway. I turned on the water in the bathtub while it was filling up. I decided to sit in the kitchen. It was hot. I opened the window, staring at the street, and suddenly I see a man, like an ordinary man, but there is something strange about him. I don't even know what. Walking, singing some song. Then he stopped near my house, looking through the windows of the first floor. He looked for about 5 minutes. Then he looked at the second floor. So I thought, what if he's waiting for a friend? All right. And then he looked through my windows, right at me. He stopped singing and got a smirk on his face. Shit's got a terrible grin, I swear to you. I almost built a house out of bricks. And then he shouted in human voice, so shouted, and his face changed, as if blackened. Although, maybe it seemed to me, but how he shouted like that. Then I felt something wet under my feet. The bathtub overflowed, so I went to turn it off. Then I went to the kitchen. He was gone. Maybe I was imagining things. I thought I told you about him and you didn't believe me. I told you to drink less, and it won't seem that way. He seems strange to me too, but you have to look at the world and really go for a walk. The man decided he might be drunk, so he's looking at other people's windows to see who'll take him in. I didn't imagine it. Wait, there's a knock at the door. It's strange who it is at this time. Okay, I'm gonna go open up and text you in the bathtub. And I went back to watching the video. That's why I didn't notice that 40 minutes had already passed since the last message. However, I didn't care much, but the neighbors came by. For sure, he overflowed the bathtub while he was staring at the man, and then he forgot to write back and left. No bad thoughts occurred to me at that time, so I continued to sit on the internet, and after a couple of hours I went to bed. Tomorrow, I have to go to school after all. The next day went by quickly enough for me. I wanted to stop by my friend's house. By the way, he lives across the street from my house. But then I remembered that he left about work, and he's probably not home. I didn't call him either, so as not to bother him unnecessarily. He didn't show up on social media until the evening, although he was supposed to arrive no later than 5 o'clock in the evening. To be honest, I started to get a little worried, but I immediately calmed myself with the fact that he might have gone to his girlfriend's house or something. It was about 11:53 p.m. I went to the kitchen, wildly thirsty. Pouring cool water from a carafe, I began to drink, looking out the window. Suddenly that man appeared in the street again, in the same clothes, in the same form, and with the same song, with the same step, with the same stop near my house, and with the same stare at the first floor. I was shaking, but what happened next? He looked right at me, into my eyes. He looked right at me, into my eyes. And then he had a grin on his face so evil that I almost choked on my water. And then his mouth opened to an incredible width, and he shouted frantically, fiercely, loudly, and violently, God. My God, that scream, and I had never heard anything more horrible at that moment. It seemed to me that his face darkened into a black blur, his skin sagging almost to his shoulders. I was shaking. It must have been about 15 minutes after it happened. I couldn't come to my senses. I was about to go to bed when suddenly there was a knock at the door. Loudly, forcefully, as if someone on the other side of the door wanted to break it down. I sat in a stupor, afraid to move. The knocking on the door went on for about half an hour. Then it went quiet. I blacked out and didn't wake up until 1 o'clock the next day, not remembering anything. Maybe it was for the best. A few days later, the memories gradually faded from my head, and I blamed it all on what I'd dreamed at the time. I was too exhausted, too tired, so I fancied it. I thought so, until I learned of the death of a friend. A horrible death I refused to believe. He was hung in the kitchen, right in front of the window. His head was neatly shaved, bald, as if by a good barber. There were drops of blood on the collar of his shirt, the one he was going to wear to work, that had fallen from his slit throat. This was reported to me by his mother, with whom we were on fairly good terms. As soon as I learned of his death, I realized who was responsible. Was he a maniac? Whether he was some otherworldly force in the form of a man, I don't know, but since then I never look out the windows at night any more, and always drape them shut.